So good morning, good afternoon, good evening once again, and welcome to this webinar on how to score 760 on the GMAT. My name is Raja Sudana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm going to be your main host today. Supporting me in this webinar, we have Sandeep. Sandeep's a GMAT strategy expert. In fact, he's one of the oldest GMAT strategy experts who we've had, and and he's going to make sure that throughout the webinar, if you have questions, we get responses to those questions. The audio should be better now. I am not seeing a lot of yes word disturbance. Let's just do the audio check once again. Is the audio absolutely loud and clear? It should be absolutely loud and clear at this point in time. All right, it is for most of you. For those of you who really say yes, it's with disturbance. What kind of disturbance do you guys hear? And Sandeep, if you can put your response on Teams, that'd be great as well. Just let me just put in a short answer part over here. What kind of disturbance are you experiencing? All right, Sandeep says it's very clear at his end. Okay. There's a static. Okay, if there's a static, it probably is because of an internet connection that you have. Usually, if you have a low bandwidth, that's where the static does come in because the entire audio packet doesn't go through. All right, that sounds wonderful. Okay, so what would we do in this webinar? I want to do a few things in this webinar. First of all, I want to make sure that each one of you gets an idea of how to create your own personalized study plan, gets a framework that you can use to do that. The second thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that each one of you understands what it takes to get to that 740, 750, 760 score. And then as you're preparing, depending on what your starting point is, what should you focus on? Which is, hey, should I be learning concepts? Should I be practicing questions? Should I be taking tests? And then what metrics should you measure as you do those activities over there? So it's a very strategy focused webinar. It's not a subject matter webinar. We won't be doing a whole lot of number properties or probability or sentence correction. We solve one SC question, but that's about it. Before I go into the core of the webinar, I want to make sure that I highlight a couple of free webinars that we have. So we have an algebra webinar tomorrow. That's on Sunday, 17th of January. That's a subject matter webinar. In this, we focus on inequalities and absolute value. So if this is an area that you want to excel, if 700 level, 600 level inequalities and absolute value questions are an area of concern for you, attend this. You'd find that you add at least 10 to 15 percentile points to your ability. If you are at that 40th, 50th, you probably will add 30 percentile. If you're at the 70th percentile, you'll add about another 15 odd percentile points. And so that's the algebra webinar tomorrow. Then we have a critical reasoning webinar, another subject matter webinar. That's next Saturday, exactly a week from now. In this, we talk about pre-thinking. It's an approach that we pioneered about a decade ago, and we are in the third generation of that approach. It's the most popular approach to solve 700 level critical reasoning questions. It lays the foundation for how you approach argument-based critical reasoning questions. That is next week, so a week from now. Click on register now button to register for the same. With that, let's get to know you guys a bit better. So I want to find out when do you guys plan to take the test, and the second thing that I want to know is what's your target GMAT score? What are you aiming for? All right, with regards to when do people plan to take the test, about half of you are those who haven't taken a date as of yet. And then you can really see it's kind of I'd say an increasing order kind of thing. There are a few folks who are taking the test in the next 15 days or so, and then it goes on all the way till about 80 people who haven't taken a date as of yet. With regards to the target GMAT score, about half of you are aiming for that 730 to 750 bracket. And about quarter of you are aiming for that 760 or higher, and about 6% of you are in that 660 to 700 bracket. That's wonderful over here. With that, let's go right into the webinar pane. This is what we call as the presentation window in the webinar pane. Over here, you should be seeing a PowerPoint which says, how do you score 95th percentile or better on the GMAT? And again, let me go to my annotations once again. So you see all of these scores over here. In this case, these are regardless of whether you're aiming for that 730 or that 780, the way you approach it, the process remains the same. It's just the metrics within that process that change. But before that, let's kind of talk about why should you aim for that score of 730 or higher, and why that score of 700 is not enough today. A few of you are saying that the screen's not visible. If you guys can see, why should you aim for that score of 730 or higher? Select yes over here in this poll. All right. For those of you who can't see, again, if you're on a slightly slower internet connection, it might cause this. Here's another piece over here. What kind of internet connection do you have? Do you have a regular internet which is like a cable coming to your house and you're distributing the internet from there? If you have a mobile hotspot, or are you just using your cell phone's connection? If you have a regular internet, you should be fine during this webinar. We use very low bandwidth, but we need a high quality connection, which means that, hey, a connection that maintains its integrity, and so a typical connection where the cable's coming to your house and you're distributing the internet would do it. If you're using a mobile hotspot, you might have to just get off and join again. So in about a minute or so. Mobile hotspot's not designed for real-time communication. And cellular broadband very similar to mobile hotspot overall. So again, be conscious of the connection that you're using, and if need be, just join again, and the problem will sort out by itself. Okay. All right, so why should you aim for that score of 730 or higher? I think there are three reasons why you should go there. First is, hey, if you're aiming for the top B school, which I'm sure most of you should be right now, they need that score of 730 or higher. The second is scholarships, very big reason. And a good number of folks who go for scholarships, they get that score of 730 or higher. More than 50% of that $350 million that USB schools award goes to folks who get to that score. And then this probably the most ignored reason, the delta in total earnings over a 10-year period. It's upwards of $500,000. It's the highest that it has ever been overall. Just some data to back these claims over here. You can really see how median scores at B schools have been trending at this point in time, from that 710s over here to that 730s over here. And a couple of things that you would notice is no Harvard, no Stanford there. Why? Because even in 2014, they were there at 730, at the 730 mark. The second thing which is there is there are certain schools such as Sloan or Columbia that actually release expanded GMAT stats. They're upwards of 80% of the admitted class of 2020 had scores of 700 or higher. Essentially, what these schools told you was that if you don't have a 700, don't even bother applying. And again, this is something that's kind of going on for all the top schools. These are what I call as the tier 2 schools beyond top 25. And you can really see that over here also you have that 30-point jump or so, give or take in this case. So this is statistical data. Here's some anecdotal data, real examples of a couple of students. Nishant, one of our former students, scored a 690, was rejected by every school he applied to. Schools actually told him, so Tuck and Smeel give you feedback, and so they really told him, hey, your candidacy is excellent, your GMAT score isn't up there, which is why he improved his GMAT score to 740, got an admit, not just an admit, but an admit with scholarship from Columbia or so. Pravi scored 680, applied to many schools, didn't get a single interview invite, updated that score to 740, got about 5 interview invites within 7 hours or so. 7 hours, I would just repeat. And again, you can see all the schools that she was admitted to and the scholarships that are there. KK Krishnakant, we actually hosted him just last week. Actually, earlier this week, I shouldn't even say last week, on Tuesday. He scored a 680 in round 2, applied to a bunch of schools. He actually received 16 rejections with that score. Then he improved his score to 720. He decided to apply in round 3, the dreaded round 3. Any one of you who's actually been rejected and you're thinking, I'm not going to apply in round 3, learn from him. He received 5 full scholarships. He did a dual MBA, so an MBA MIM combined, and he just got a job from Amazon. So again, 16 rejections to 5 full fellowships over here. Bottom line is your GMAT score is way more important today than it has ever been, or than it was in the prior decade or so. The second reason, scholarships. I think probably one of the biggest reasons why, because it's not just the fact that you got an admission, it's instant gratification. You don't have to pay for that degree. So USB schools give out about $350 million worth of total scholarship money. And this is data that you'd only see with us. Why? Because we get about 10,000 paying students every year. But 55% of that scholarship money, based on our estimates, goes to people who score 740 or higher. Pretty much all of that goes to people who get to that score of 710 or higher. Which, if you do the math, if you get to that 740 score, you should at least be getting $40,000 worth of median scholarship, if not more. And there are two factors that describe or that determine the amount of scholarship money you get. One is your GMAT score. Second is your likability during the interview. Again, some anecdotal data. So that was statistical data. Here's more anecdotal data. Mansi, one of our former students, she got into pretty much every school she applied to: Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Kellogg, and INSEAD. She got a $90,000 scholarship from Harvard. Victor got a full ride from Ross and Kenyon Flagler. You can see their GMAT scores over here. When you get the session PDF, these are links to their YouTube interviews. Kong Bui scored 760, got 5 full fellowships, very similar to Krishna. He also got a very special scholarship from Ohio Fisher, which is where he did his MBA from, where he not only got a full tuition waiver, he was also paid $1,700 per month by the school to study over there. Okay, again, we talked about these cases, Nishant, Pravi, and Krishna. You can really see the max scholarship amounts that they got from a particular school over here. And this is another trend that I'm seeing more and more over the last 3 years or so, where schools actually will waitlist you now and give you an opportunity to enhance your GMAT score. So Ayush, one of our former students, scored a 710, applied to Ross and Columbia, had a really good time in the interview. He really connected with his interviewer. He was expecting an admit. Both these schools waitlisted him, and so he reached out to these schools and said, "Hey, I thought I was a good fit. I thought, based on the feedback that you guys gave me, that I would get an invite." And the school said, "Hey, we love your candidacy. Your GMAT score is not there." So he again appeared for the GMAT, improved it to 750. Didn't even apply again, just updated that GMAT score, and he converted that waitlist to an admit with scholarship. Another recent case study, which is just about a month old. Dipinti, one of our former students, scored a 730, applied to Darden, Ross, Fuqua, and Tuck. Got a reject or waitlist from Darden, Ross, and Fuqua. She kind of recognized, hey, her GMAT score is not there yet. And actually, she got feedback that her candidacy is very average. So that's when she said, okay, I'm going to take the GMAT again, improve that to 760, updated that score, and let the Tuck admission committee know. Within 4 days, she got an admit with 50,000 scholarship. Now, Tuck is ranked a lot higher than all the other schools that she applied to overall. So again, you can really see the impact of that higher GMAT score. So if you're aiming for that score of 700, get to that score of 740. If you want to see more of such success stories, and you can connect with us on our YouTube channel. You have upwards of 130 such success stories over there. Again, here's a quote by John Fuller, who's the former admissions director at Ross. He says, hey, someone with that 770 is way more likely to get a financial award. Why? Because the school wants to buy that high GMAT score. The third reason, probably the most important reason. Before I do this, anyone saw the recent stats release by Stanford about the record increase in the starting salaries of their graduates? Yes, no? How many of you saw that? It was released 2 days ago. So Stanford graduates now, the class of 2020, commands a combined starting salary of upwards of $215,000, with a base salary of about $153K, a bonus of about 35K and a sign-on bonus of about 35K and a performance-based bonus of about 71K. I know the numbers don't add up. Don't ask me how did they come up with that 215, but that's kind of what it was. Um, about half the people got a sign-on bonus, but 71% of the people got a performance-based bonus over there. So I mean, record earnings over there, and which is the point that I want to make over here. I'm going to compare two schools. This is old data from 2018 for both these schools. But what you see is Babson and MIT, two schools about 20 miles away. Graduates from both these schools uh, got admission or get jobs within the New England area. And so arguably they have access to a very similar sort of opportunities. But when you look at the starting salaries, they're off by about $40,000, and you look at their sign-on bonus, and this is, again, as I said, not current data, data from 2 years back. It's off by about $20,000. So the first year compensation, the delta is about $60,000. If you consider delta to be about $45,000, why? Because you're not going to get a bonus every year. Even then, that delta, just from a simple cash component standpoint, not even a simple interest, but a simple cash component standpoint, is about $450,000. So again, aim for that score of 730 overall. Now with that, let's kind of talk about how do you get to that score of 730? What does it take to get to that score of 730? And one of the things when people think about scoring high on the GMAT, they really think about, hey, I've got to be really fast at solving questions. I've got to figure out which questions do I need to leave versus which ones am I going to attempt. I've got to figure out how am I going to attempt the first 10 questions. I've got to build that stamina for the 3.5-hour exam. And they focus but half of their time worrying about these things, and that's kind of the wrong area of focus. One thing when it comes to acing the GMAT that I want you to remember is it's about building ability. If you have the ability to do well on the GMAT, then you should start worrying about these things. These things are about 20% of that score, whereas this is about 80% of that score. Majority of the people who fail to get to that 730 or higher score fail not here, but fail here, over here. Is GRE also acceptable by B schools? Yes, it is. Yes. So with that, I'm going to just talk about two things, accuracy versus ability. I want to define these because we're going to use these terms again and again and again. So what is accuracy? Accuracy, when you take a quiz, you get, let's say it's a 10-question quiz, you get 8 out of them, out of those 10 correct. It's the percentage of questions that you get correct. So you'd say 8 out of 10, 80% accuracy. It's an absolute number. There's no rank associated with it. In a quiz, you might get 80% accuracy. You might still be at a 50th percentile ability if half the people who take the quiz get 80% accuracy. Ability is a comparative number. It tells you how good are you compared to others over there. And so in a different quiz, same 10-question quiz, you might get 7 out of 10, which is 70% accuracy. But if those questions are uber hard, your ability might be 90th percentile. So again, it's a comparative performance. And on the GMAT, ability is what matters. Accuracy is not as relevant. And to prove my point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simulate how an adaptive test works. On the y-axis, what we have is the difficulty level of question. On the x-axis, what we have is the question number. So you're going to have two students, student 1 and student 2, or case 1 and case 2. Student 1 gets the first question, which is usually around that median difficulty level, gets that right. Gets the second question, which is of a higher difficulty level. You can really see as you go from question 1 to question 2, we've gone higher on the y-axis, higher on the difficulty axis. Y-axis is the difficulty axis. Over here, he gets that right. Consequently, gets the third question, which is even more difficult. He gets that wrong. Consequently, gets the fourth question, which is slightly easier. Okay, and he gets that right. So why do we say it's slightly easier? This is your fourth question over here. You can, if you draw horizontal lines from question 2 and question 3, you can see the question 4 is between those two lines, and gets the fifth question, which is slightly more challenging, wrong as well. Okay, so that's student one at question number 5, we will terminate. Let's assume we terminated the test. Student two, or case two, gets let's see how his journey is. He gets the first question, um, he gets it wrong. Okay, gets the second question, which is an easier question. He gets this right. Gets the third question, which is slightly more difficult. He gets this wrong. Gets the fourth question, gets this right, and gets the fifth question right as well. Now, if I were to end the test at this point, um, who do you think would be doing better? Is it going to be student 1 or is it going to be student 2? Who do you think would be doing better? Student 1 or student 2? If I were to end the poll at this point over here before question number 6. And as about 90% of you have said, it's going to be student 1 who'd be doing better. That's wonderful. Why do you think student 1 is going to be doing better? What is the rationale? What's the reasoning why student 1 would be scoring higher at this point in time? Why do you think student 1 is doing better? Because he answered more difficult questions correctly. A lot of people say because he got the initial questions right. That's just an observation, not the causality. The causality, the reason why student 1 would have a higher score was because he answered more difficult questions correctly. Okay. Ability is an outcome, which is the score. The causality, the reason, is because he's able to answer more difficult questions correctly. In the same way, if you really just say, hey, compare two individuals, you say one's stronger than the other, that the fact that you say one is stronger than the other is your conclusion or is the outcome. And the reasoning could be, hey, because it seems he has more muscles, or B, because he's lifted more weight than the other guy has. So that's the causality, the reasoning. So focus on the reason. Why? Because if you focus on the reason, most of the times, if you get the causality right, the outcome is happens automatically. It's the causality where we falter overall. Okay. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Okay, perfect. So let's summarize this. So just to add some stats to this, student 1 got 5 questions. Each one of them were either at the average difficulty level, which was the first question, which was at the average difficulty level, or above the average difficulty level over here. Student 2 only got 1 question, which was at the average difficulty level. Every other question that he received, 2, 3, 4, and 5, were below the average difficulty level. Okay, so when you think about acing the GMAT, there are 2 challenges that you should worry about. One is to get difficult questions served to you. Why? Because on the GMAT, you have this thing called the question picker that will pick questions and it'll serve questions based on what it estimates as your ability. So if you don't demonstrate that ability, you won't even get difficult questions served to you. The second thing is to answer those correctly. Why? Because if you don't answer them correctly, again, you won't get difficult questions served to you. So it's kind of a cyclical system over there, but it makes sense when you think about it. So 2 challenges: get difficult questions served, get that question picker to serve you difficult questions. The second is to answer those correctly. So do you practice more difficult questions? Is that correct? Rohit, if you want to become a businessman, should you be starting more businesses or should you be doing an MBA? What should you be doing? If you want to become a businessman, a successful businessman, yes. So then should you be practicing more difficult questions? If you want to get more difficult questions right? Is that what you should be doing? No, not really. Not really. You first need to be there at an appropriate stage, because if you blindly practice difficult questions, you won't get them right. Here's another statistic that I will tell you. People who get that 770, 760 scores practice way fewer questions. If you look at, success stories on GMAT Club or on our YouTube channel, they practice way fewer questions than people who get a 650. People who get a 650 practice way more. Why? Because they think the way to learn is to practice questions. Okay, so when should you practice is a very important question, which we will answer in about 30 minutes. I'll give you a framework which will tell you when should you practice more questions and which question should you practice. Just as a rule of thumb, anytime you practice 20 questions, you don't see a tangible improvement, and I say tangible, not a small improvement, you're doing something majorly wrong. Tell yourself that. Okay. But again, the takeaway is your GMAT score is governed by your ability to answer difficult questions correctly. All right. Again, remember this. These pieces, worry about them in the last 20 days, not before that. Okay. So let's kind of look at, so that was a principle of how the GMAT exam works. Let's now look at some more examples. Now, what you see is a screenshot of what we call as the old GMAT prep software. Before the online GMAT mock tests or GMAT official mock tests, there used to be something called a GMAT prep software. This was a software that MBA.com had released, and this software was actually much better than the online GMAT exams that they now sell, because it gave you wonderful insights. It gave you ESR-like analysis. So this screenshot is from that test. Now, what you see over here is attempts of two different students where essentially it's kind of difficult to differentiate between them if you consider question numbers 11 to 41. This is 2018, so the verbal section was 41 questions rather than 36 questions then. So their accuracy between these two, between question numbers 11 and 41 was 71%. The only difference here was that student 2 had gotten the first two questions wrong. That was it. Now, when you look at their end verbal scores, student 1, which is this guy, got a V43, which is 97th percentile rank. Student 2 got a V32, which is 65th percentile rank. Or in other words, what the test told him, student 1, was you're among the top 6,000 students. What the test told student 2 was that he is among the top 70,000 students. So there are 70,000 students who are at the same level or better than him. When you look at this, okay, then what do you think about the GMAT? Is the GMAT forgiving or is the GMAT unforgiving? What does this tell you? And this is a really important question. Look at this data, think about it, think about what we've just done prior to this, and then tell me, according to you, is the GMAT forgiving or unforgiving? Come on, take a stand. It's an inference question. What do you infer from this based on what I've told you so far? Is it forgiving or unforgiving? And again, remember, this is a very low risk environment. You are here to learn. So even if you make a mistake, you learn. If you get it right, give yourself a pat on the back. Is it forgiving or unforgiving? Please don't put your answers in the Q&A pod because again, then your questions get hidden by those statements that you put in. All right, I have 130 responses. 24% of you say it's forgiving. 76% of you say it's unforgiving. Actually, the GMAT is very, very, very forgiving. It's probably the most forgiving exam that I've ever seen. A lot of people think, man, I got 2 questions wrong and I got dumped from a 6,000th rank, a 97th percentile rank. I'm going to tell you why, Rimjim. Hold on, that's where I'm going. A lot of people think that I got dumped from a 6,000 rank to a 70,000 rank. So the GMAT must be very unforgiving. The thing which is there is the same folks don't really think about it and say, hey, how the hell can I make 9 out of 41 mistakes and still get a 97th percentile rank? I mean, this guy made 9 out of 41 mistakes, right? Almost 25% of the questions wrong, or 23% more or less, and still got a 97th percentile rank. I can get a quarter of the questions wrong. Would you agree? Yes, no? And this is where Yes, because of the difficulty level of questions. Yes, the GMAT's a very forgiving exam. Let's just hold this on, and I know many of you are still confused. Let's take this data, map it to that model of the test that we just talked about. Okay, I think I have this over here. Let's just map this over to this. We're going to look at student 2 or case 2. He got the first question, which was a 50th percentile question or a median difficulty question. He got that wrong. He got the second question, which was a 30th percentile question. He got that wrong as well. Now, at this point in time, he got the third question, which is of a 15th percentile level. Isn't that logical to really say, if you are a computer adaptive test, if you are a question picking engine, if I got a 50th percentile question and a 30th percentile question wrong, you'd actually give this guy a 15th percentile question? Yes, right? You'd really make the question level easier, or the difficulty level easier, till the student starts to get questions correct. So he got a 15th percentile question. He got that right. He got a 20th percentile question. He got that right as well. 40th percentile question, got that right, and so on and so forth over here. Whereas student 1 was already getting a 90th percentile question by the time he had reached question number 5, and then he continued to get those questions correct. By the way, this guy started making mistakes again around that 10th or 11th question over there. Now, you guys see this as accuracy. That's not what the GMAT tells you. What the GMAT looks at are these numbers, which are called ability ranks. So within the test, you get assigned an ability score. So the V43 guy, based on the difficulty level of questions he answered correctly, had a 95th percentile ability in SC, a 95th percentile ability in CR, and an 87th percentile ability in RC. The V32 guy had much lower abilities in the corresponding subsections. When you look at these students through the lens of ability, do you see them as very different? Do they look very different? Right? They look super, super different. And this is how the GMAT looks at you. When I really say GMAT doesn't care as much about accuracy, that it was there to demonstrate you the same to you. What it cares about is ability. How many of you have taken a mock test over here? How many of you have taken a mock test? Okay, actually, let me just put in a yes, no score. Not yet. Okay. Do you know your ability scores in SCCR and RC? Do you know your ability scores in SCCR and RC? No, pretty much, despite knowing this, no one in the industry builds that mock test over there. There are only two ways to get your ability scores. One is take the actual GMAT. So spend $250, take the actual GMAT. And by the way, in the center, you've got to go to the center to do that, and then spend $30 to get an ESR. How many of you have done that? How many of you have taken the GMAT and then spend money to get the ESR? Anyone who's done that over here? Yes. That's one way to do it. So you spend $280. The other way is to take one of our mock tests, which is a Sigma X mock, and you will get an analysis which is very similar to an ESR. Okay. So if you've not taken a mock test, or if you want to know your starting abilities, why? Because they are key to creating a personalized study plan, then essentially take a Sigma X mock test. Over here, we offer one free Sigma X mock test. It gives you your ability, subsectional abilities in SC, CR, and RC, arithmetic, and algebra geometry. ESR is an enhanced score report. It's basically, think of it as a diagnostic of your GMAT attempt. It tells you where you did well, where you faltered, so that you know what should you do next. Do we get a ESR with the GMAT online? No, you do not. Unfortunately, you don't. Don't ask me why, because I've been asking the GMAC why, and they have no answer to that. Okay. So again, take a Sigma X mock, bookmark that link, and you'd be able to really get a really solid idea of where you currently are. So what abilities does the GMAT measure? So the GMAT, actually, a lot of us worry about this score out of 800, which kind of is what you probably can see. But what you should worry about are these 3 subsectional abilities in verbal and these 2 subsectional abilities in quant. And each of these subsections are weighted equally. So SC, CR, and RC, all of them have 1/3 weight when it comes to that verbal score. Arithmetic and algebra geometry have half weight, 50% weight each when it comes to that quant score. Let's just go over here. Okay, why is my presentation stuck? I'm sorry. Just 1 second, guys. I think there's something off with this. Just 1 second. Okay, how about now? Can you guys see a proper screen which says GMAT Ability? Perfect. So which 5 subsections are you looking at? These are the 5 subsections. I think there was something wrong with the presentation. But the 5 subsections that you need to worry about are SC, CR, and RC. These are your verbal subsections over here, and arithmetic and algebra geometry. These are the quant subsections. Okay, perfect. Should you take the Sigma X mock without any preparation? Yes, I think it'll give you a good idea of where you currently stand. Yes. Okay. But again, let me reiterate, acing the GMATs about building ability, all of these other things, last 15, last 20 days over there. Okay. Now, we talked about the GMAT's a very forgiving exam, and this is another evidence and GMAT measures, and the GMAT measures ability has another data point to back that claim. And yes, these mocks are adaptive, completely adaptive, by the way. So here's an example of a student who improved from a V17, which is a 15th percentile on GMAT verbal, to V40, which is a 91st percentile. What you see is, that V40 score is 91st percentile. You can see the ability scores that it's composed of. A 94th percentile ability in SC, a 79th in CR, and a 73rd in RC over here. You can actually click on this link once you get the presentation to download this ESR. Okay. Now the thing over here is you can see the number of mistakes. He made about 12 mistakes in his actual attempt and still was able to get to that 90th percentile. The reason why he did that was because, he proved to the system that he can solve the medium and medium hard questions with very high hit rate. He did make a mistake over here. It's not that he got all of them right. He did make a mistake. He did make a couple of mistakes over here. But then when he got the most challenging questions, he kind of got half the questions wrong, but because he made mistakes on very hard questions or 700 level questions, the test maintained that difficulty level, and as a result, he was able to get to a V40. Okay. Guys, don't pose these questions in the open-ended question pod, please. It interrupts the entire flow. Okay. So the key thing which is there is, to get to that 730 odd score, you've got to know which abilities do you need to build and which abilities, where are you already there? Because once you know that, you can then focus your energy on the most productive areas and get to that target GMAT score in the shortest possible time over here. But before that, let's kind of talk about, actually, even before that, I want to ask this. What's the benefit of getting done with the GMAT by March? What do you think is the benefit of getting done with the GMAT by March or April? Okay, round 1. Yes, a lot of people think that's round 1. But what's the bigger benefit? What's kind of the biggest benefit to do that? A lot of people actually don't recognize the more tangible benefits over there. Gives time to work on application. What else? So here is something that I will tell you. Okay. Whatever you hear over here, these are in principle things which are true. But when you think about round 1 versus round 2, There's really not much difference. And I've seen more students than anyone else in this in the GMAT space over there. So round one versus round two, really not a whole lot of difference, 5 to 7%, regardless of what B schools will tell you. And then we can argue about why, because I've seen how B schools behave. Admission rates, not a whole lot. Scholarships, not a whole lot. Round one versus round two. I'll tell you the biggest difference when it comes to getting the GMAT early, or three big differences. One is you get to pick to choose which admission consultant would you work with. Why? Because come May, come June, every top admission consultant will be booked. They would stop taking students. And trust me, if you have a 750, you want to work with an admissions consultant overall, number one. The second thing, getting scholarships, getting fellowships, getting admissions means that you know the B school inside out. And if you get done with the GMAT in March, it gives you the opportunity to connect with B school students when they are ready to connect with you, not when they are in their internships, when they're themselves looking for jobs. So the insights that you get are priceless at that point in time. And the third thing, it allows you to work on any weakness that you have in your profile. It allows you to get that killer letter of recommendation. Why? Because that takes time. Okay. Three things. Work with killer admission consultants. Now, connect with students at B schools and that LOR over there. A lot of you think it's admissions round one versus round two makes a huge difference. It doesn't. I have data to prove, and this is raw data. Scholarships, not really. Why would B schools tell you apply in round one? Why? Because an admissions director, his job is to get seats filled. So he or she doesn't want uncertainty. So they would ask you to apply as early as possible. Yet, even in round three, I've seen them get a lot of full scholarships. So yes, there are things that people say, then there are ways that people act, and that's very different. So get done with the GMAT by March or April, and then you're going to find that your life's a lot easier. Okay. Now, what does a study plan do? Why don't you write your answers? So to get done with the GMAT by March or April, you need that study plan. What's the job of a study plan? What is the job of a study plan? Okay, let's get this. Meet deadlines, it makes one disciplined, tells you the areas of focus, plans, keeps you organized. Okay, gives you the right direction. All right, good responses over here. Good, relevant. I don't think most of them are complete. So let me tell you, when I think about a study plan, what does it do? For me, a study plan answers three questions. One is, how will I reach my target GMAT score? Each one of you is unique. So each one of you needs to have a path, a vision as to these are the milestones I'm going to hit, or these are the milestones that I need to hit to get to get to my target GMAT score. Okay. You need to have those milestones over there in place, and these milestones need to be unique to you. So that how is the first question that it does, and I'm going to demonstrate why it has to be different for each one of you. The second thing is a good estimate of how much time do I need to put in to get to there. Some of you are asking, I have 2 months, can I do that? I have a question. It says I have a study plan of 2 hours daily and 5 hours on the weekend. That's not a study plan. That's a study time. That's not a plan. Okay. So some of you may be able to get there in a month. Others may need 3 months, depending on how much time you put in and depending on how much help you need. Okay. So that's the second question that a study plan answers. For you as an individual, how much time do you need, depending on the other commitments that you have? And the third, probably the most important question is, where do I need to put in this time? Early on in the session, we were talking about, someone said, hey, if I need to be able to answer 700 level questions correctly, I need to practice a lot of 700 level questions correctly. Are you there where you can practice those questions, or should you be doing something else? That where is really important over here. Is it possible to prepare for the GMAT with job? Yes, everyone does that. Do not ever leave your job to prepare for the GMAT. That's one of the worst things that can happen. Okay. To demonstrate answers to these questions, I'm going to actually take a case study. I'm going to look at Abby and Chase. Okay. So both of them have a starting score of 600. Both of them want to get to that score of 40. Abby is someone who's more balanced as an individual. She has a quant score of Q42 and a verbal score of V31. Chase, on the other hand, is way more is way better in quant than in verbal. You can really see he's a Q49 and a V23. Either way, both of them have a starting score of 600. Now, let's first figure out, who do you associate with more? Who are you more like? So who are you in this? Actually, let me just get this question over here. Who do you associate with, Abby or Chase? Let's kind of put in this poll question. Let's see how many Abbeys and how many Chases do we have over here. All right, but half and half. You can really see 50% of the folks are more of those who have a balanced GMAT score, a balanced quant and verbal score, whereas the other folks have or associate more with check. It's about 50-50. That's kind of rare. I usually see like 47-53. 50-50 is really rare. Okay, that's interesting. It's a really balanced group that I have. So then you have to figure out, okay, when it comes to that Q42, what is this made up of? Now, to make things simple, I put in identical ability scores more or less in the subsection. So here again, Q42 is made up of 42nd percentile in algebra and 42nd percentile in arithmetic and algebra and geometry and arithmetic. And on the verbal side, around that 60th percentile on each subsection. This is a very rare occurrence. Just done that so that you can really say, hey, this guy's at the 42nd percentile, and on the verbal side, Abby is at that 60th percentile. That's very easy over here. Chase, on the other hand, is around that 70th percentile in quant and around the 35th percentile in verbal. Okay, so at this point in time, what do you think about their study plans? If given this data, what do you think? How would their study plans look like? What do you think? How would their study plans look like? Given this data point. JS going to focus more on verbal. Abby is going to focus on both. Yes. Opposite, more or less. We shouldn't say opposite in priority. Okay. But you kind of get this. I think the piece which is there is what each one of you gets is, if I'm Chase, I need to worry about verbal more. Okay. And if I'm Abby, I need to worry about quant more. Okay. It's just logical. Very, very logical. Yet, how many of you get these ability scores? Very few. But you can really see once you have these ability scores, how it's the where you need to focus on is a very logical extension, right? Once you have these ability scores, it's a very logical extension. Now, the answer, I think you have the answers to this question. Do you think both Abby and Chase need the same quant and verbal scores to achieve 740? Not really. Okay. Do they need to put in the same amount of time in quant and verbal? Not really. Okay. Do they need to study the same content in quant and verbal? Not really. But what should they study? Let's kind of look at that over here. So we built this thing called a personalized study plan. This is an AI-driven utility that allows each one of you to create your study plan. Okay. Um, Using this last year, e-GMAT has created about 25,000 personalized study plans. So the reason why they created more than one is why? Because plans change sometimes. You think about studying for the GMAT, then work comes in, and the beauty of this is because this is AI driven, it allows you to replan in an infinite number of times. Okay, so let's see how this tool works. So this is for Abby. You can see her current score is, and I'm going to just increase the size of this presentation so you guys can see this over here. I'm going to make this full screen. So for Abby, uh, 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 this is her quant score, this is her verbal score, and what the system says is, okay, since you're someone who's strong in verbal, let's maximize your verbal abilities first, and then let us help you improve your quant so that you get to that score of 740. So she's going to aim for a Q48 and a V42. Now, where does Abby spend her time? To go from a 59 percentile in SC to a 94th percentile in SC, Abby needs about 2.1 weeks. Similarly, about 2 weeks in critical reasoning and about 2 weeks in reading comprehension. This is 2 weeks of dedicated effort. The system takes into account how much time Abby puts in over weekdays and over the weekend, and accordingly calculates this time over here. Similarly, on the quant side, which kind of is surprising, you might think that Abby would need to spend more time on quant. She actually doesn't. Why? Because she's not aiming for that 90th percentile in quant. She needs to go from that 42nd percentile to that 65th percentile. So she needs about 2.5, at the most 3 weeks in both arithmetic and algebra geometry over here. Okay. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? You can really see so the principle here is you're leveraging your strengths. And the system's giving you an estimate of how much time do you need to leverage your strengths enough to get to that target quant and target verbal abilities over there. For Chase, the world is very different. Again, I'm going to go full screen so that we focus on this. He is really strong in quant and kind of weak in verbal. 35th percentile is not a great starting score. So what the system tells us is, hey, Chase, you've got to leverage your strength in quant first. So let's get that Q49 to Q50, and then let's help you get that V23 to V40 over here. Okay. Accordingly, Chase is not going to spend a whole lot of time in quant. He's going to spend about a week in arithmetic and a week in algebra geometry just to maintain his performance. And then he's going to spend about 3 weeks each in SC, in CR, and in RC. So about 9 weeks total in verbal over there. Okay. Why does quant come for Chase first? That's a great question. The reason is because in principle, I always believe that you should leverage your strengths first and then spend the remaining time on verbal. Okay. How many hours per week are they talking about? We're talking about 20 hours per week in this case. But if you were to study more, the time will compress. If you were to study less, the time will expand. PSP allows you to do that. Okay. Will he stop doing quant altogether when he moves to verbal? Absolutely, he will. And which is where we have what we call as those test readiness modules. Would that be coming? But those are all great questions. Okay. So let's kind of compare Chase and Abby. Now, for Chase, he wants to get to a V40 and a Q50 to get to that score of 740. And for Abby, she wants to get to a V42 and a Q48. Okay. Now, this may seem very, very similar, but I can tell you there's a huge difference between a Q50 and a Q48. And similarly, a pretty big difference between a V40 and a V42 over here. Okay. But that's not the biggest difference. The biggest difference is these time estimates. Chase needs to spend 50% more time than Abby when it comes to verbal. Abby needs to spend twice as much time as Chase needs in quant. By the way, Abby still doesn't become as good as Chase. And yes, the PSP is included in every package that we offer. But coming back to this over here, do you now see a second utility? In addition to just giving you those quant and verbal milestones and these individual abilities, do you see a second utility of planning properly? It tells you how much time you as an individual needs. When you go to a prep course, they'll typically say, hey, you're going to study for 4 months and you're going to get to your target score. The answer is not everyone needs 4 months. Some people need 2, others need 5. And can you see why such is the case? Can you understand, see the logic behind it? Yes, no? You're starting at different points. The problem with an actual prep, with a unified prep course is this: it doesn't personalize your learning. On the other hand, when you go to a private tutor does personalize your learning. Okay. Uh, Again, the key thing is target scores that they're aiming for, the milestones that they're aiming for. When I say target scores, they are different. The time spent is different, but that's not the biggest difference, by the way. The biggest difference is where do they spend this time? Okay, that is the biggest difference over here. Why? Because you do the wrong things, you can spend all of this time, you're still not going to get to that target GMAT score. Okay, and for this, I want to introduce to you this architecture called stages of learning. Okay, remember percentile. What is percentile? Is it an absolute term or is it a comparative term? Percentile, absolute or comparative? Relative or a comparative term, not an absolute term. So when I say you want to get to that 95th percentile, you have to hit certain milestones. Okay, and these are the milestones of learning that you need to hit. Let's say and this is for every subsection, and even within a subsection it is every module. For example, if I were to say you are at the 95th percentile in even odd, which is a module within number properties, what I mean is you know the concepts, you know how to apply those concepts, you mastered that application, okay, and then you've gotten so well that you've refined it to perfection. That's when you get to that 95th percentile. So when you have a certain percentile today, it actually corresponds to a certain stage of learning. For those of you who are below 50th percentile today, you guys need to spend some time to learn concepts and learn applications. You may know some concepts, but you do need to spend some time to learn certain other concepts. When you know all the concepts, you kind of automatically get to that 25th to 30th percentile over here. Okay. When you know how to apply this, you get to that 50th to 60th percentile over here. When you master application, you get to that 70th percentile. And when you refine it to perfection, that's when you get to that 90th percentile. Now, you have these stages: learn concepts, learn application, master application, and refine to perfection. These 4 stages of score improvement. In which stage do you think you need to practice questions, those 700 level questions? In which stage do you think you need to do that? Okay, definitely maintaining. Which else? Yes, the second one is refined to perfection. So once you mastered application and you want to go from that master application to refined to perfection, that's where you can practice those 700 level. Okay. Anyone over here who's stuck at that 60th percentile and is unable to improve despite solving hundreds and hundreds of questions? Okay. Do you get some idea of why that is the case? Why, despite solving hundreds and hundreds of questions, you are kind of still stuck here? Because you've not mastered application, you're solving those questions. Those questions are actually chipping off what you know. Okay. What is the percentile to score mapping? Percentile to score mapping is a 1-to-1. And again, if you Google GMAT percentiles, for example, 760 is 99th percentile, 740 is 97th percentile, a 710 is 90th percentile, or I think, yeah, it's 90th percentile now. 700 is 88th percentile. Okay. Now, Abby. Where should Abby spend her time? Remember, Abby had about 6 weeks on verbal and about 3 weeks on quant. And you see her percentile, starting percentile score over here. Where should Abby be spending most of her time if she has 2 weeks in SC and she has a 60th percentile score, a starting ability? Where should Abby be spending her time? Okay, good. Think about it. It's a simple thing. Yes, I need a few more responses. Yes, Abby would be spending her time on the verbal side on master application and refined to perfection. Okay. On which means if she were an e-GMAT student, she won't do the concepts. She would do what we call as a revision B, and then she would go right into Scholaranium for verbal. On the other hand, in quant, she doesn't need to go beyond 70th. So she would not focus on refined to perfection. She would only focus on this. Look at this chart. A, does it make sense? B, does it look simple? Right? Yes and yes. Okay. What does refined to perfection mean? Uh, uh, let's hold off. I'll take this question in the end. We'll get digressed if we go there. But if you're an e-GMAT student, write to your customer success champion. He'll give you the recipe to refine to perfection. Okay, and towards the end, I'll give you an overview. But if you're an e-GMATer, write to the GMAT strategy team, and they will tell you the recipe for it. Okay. Now Chase is a completely in a different boat. His starting abilities are a lot lower on the verbal side, a lot higher on the quant side. So where would Chase spend his time? On the verbal side, he'll learn concepts. Then what he'll do? Learn concepts, master application, and to a certain extent, refine to perfection. If not completely, but to a certain extent. On the quant side, he already has mastered. He's just going to focus on refine to perfection. That's about it. You can now see why Chase needs 3 weeks on SC, 3 weeks on CR, and 3 weeks on RC, whereas Abby doesn't need that much time. Can you see why Chase needs so much more time on verbal? Why? Because he has this additional step, and he's not going to do as much in refine to perfection as Abby is going to do. Okay, if you are Chase and if you're blindly solving 700 questions, you're not going to get anywhere. In fact, even if you're Abby and if you're blindly solving 700 level questions, you're not going to get anywhere. It's about knowing where you are. It's about telling yourself what is that next milestone over there. Okay. So the key thing is don't study using an approach, a flat approach where you're just studying. Why? Because here is a case where even though both Abby and Chase, they are aiming for that score of 740, their path to 740, the time required to get there, and what components of learning do they need to use? They're very, very different. And it depends on who you are, frankly. How many of you have done this level of, how have experienced this level of personalization? How many of you have done this or on your own? How many of you want to do this? Doing it right now, good. Want to do. So let us help you get there. If you're an e-GMAT student, you have access to PSP. You probably have made that study plan. You know these stages of learning. If you haven't, reach out to your customer success team, attend the onboarding sessions. You know, they're done twice every week. Attend the test readiness session. Someone was talking about what's refined to perfection. That's where test readiness comes in over there. And make sure that you have the guidance videos for 3 stages of learning. Okay. These were the 3 stages of learning. I just gave you an overview. We have upwards of an hour of content for this. Okay. If you're someone who's not an e-GMAT student, first of all, figure out where you currently stand. Okay. Get your starting abilities and then work with a level 1 strategy expert to create that personalized study plan over here. We have about 20 odd slots that we've opened for this webinar. So you can reserve that. I think we have slots open on probably on Sunday and Monday, probably some of Tuesday for a level 1 expert. You can work with them over there. So you can just select this and you can get to it. Okay. Now, as you get there, what you're going to really see is case studies of how we have helped students, and you'd see a questionnaire. Fill out that questionnaire because that helps us get to the right kind of helps us get the right kind of expert. If you need help in quant, if you need help in verbal, if you have timing issues, if you have X, Y, or Z issues, you get the right kind of expert that way. So fill that questionnaire. That's really important over here. So with that, let's kind of understand, how do you build this thing called ability? I mean, you've talked about the time estimates, you've talked about the study plan, we've talked about the metrics over here. Okay. And so I'm going to hide this piece over here. Does PSP include IR and AWA? No. I mean, IR is a different scale. We offer an IR course, which is included with our verbal and GMAT online courses, but no one cares about IR and AWA. Okay, just to summarize what we've learned so far. Okay, if you want to get to that 730 plus score, you know, if you're aiming for a top school, get to that 730 or higher score on a scholarship. If you are from a more competitive background, such as if you're an Indian techie, guy or girl, get to that 750 or higher score. Understand that the GMAT's a test of ability. To ace it, build your ability. To build that ability, get a personalized study plan and then understand the 4 stages of learning. Okay, overall. Now, I want to talk about this. Again, guys, questions not here, please, in the Q&A pod, and Sandeep can answer those questions. And can you customize your PSP in terms of modules and not timing? Yes, you can. You can drag and drop those sequence. Yes. So the UI allows you to do that. Okay, please questions in the Q&A pod. Okay, let's talk about ability and stages of learning over here. Again, remember, learn concepts gets you to the 25th percentile, learn application gets you to that 50th percentile, master application gets you to that 70th percentile, and refined to perfection gets you to that 90th percentile. Again, one of the things we've got to really understand is to graduate from a stage, you need to do different activities at different stages, and the extent of intensity is very, very different at different stages. For example, the most intense stages are stages 2 and 3 when you're learning application and when you're mastering application, which means once you get to the learning application stage over here, you should not take a break, which means if you're studying SC, finish SC. If you're studying CR, finish CR. If you're studying number properties, finish number properties over there. In this case, so these are very, very connected stages in this case. So once you get to that stage, don't take a break from a subsection. Learn concepts, refine to perfection are stages where again, it's always good to be super intense, but if you want to drop that intensity a bit, you can still do that. Okay. Now, how many of you are stuck at that 60th percentile in anything, whether it's SC or RC or CR or geometry or number properties or algebra, so on and so forth. Okay. I want to tell you why do people get stuck, and I've seen my fair share of students, upwards of 50,000 students overall. So I'll tell you why do people get stuck. Okay. Just to do that, let me share some stats over here. A 60th percentile student is someone who actually spends about 40. The case that we're talking about over here is someone who spent about 40 hours learning, whose starting ability is in that 30th percentile, and a 60th percentile means you're among the top 80,000 test takers every year. A 90th percentile student is amongst the top 20,000 test takers every year. Again, he or she spends the same number of hours, same starting ability, and I think the biggest piece over here is the capabilities of both these students is very similar. Okay. So the difference between these two is that the 90th percentile student it's about achieving perfection. All right, getting to that 90th percentile is about getting there. It's about hitting that highest level of performance, and you achieve perfection when you get feedback. Without feedback and without the right approach, you won't get to that 90th percentile. I think the best analogy I can give you is in sports where you have a lot of people who play any sport, whether it's cricket or football or baseball, and who are good. Okay, that's a lot of people who are good. Some of them are very good, but very few get to that level of excellence who are at that 90th percentile level. And people who get to that level of excellence, they are the ones who actually have used the right methods, which means their technique is correct, and also do the right kind of conditioning over there. The GMATs very similar. When you think about a 60th percentile student, and we're going to focus on SC, a 60th percentile student really thinks that GMAT SC is about learning, 8 major error types, and you can really see the error types over here. A 60th percentile student primarily uses splits as a way to solve questions. Even when they say they use meaning, they don't use meaning, and I'll prove this to you. For them, meaning is a secondary thing. If they can't see splits, they'll think about meaning. When it comes to that first two stages of learning, they only get about 7 to 10 feedback points to see whether they're actually learning or not. Okay, and they focus majority of their time in practicing over here. Anyone over here considers himself or herself has done this and is stuck at 60th percentile? Anyone associates with this? A 90th percentile student is thinks of the same thing very differently. A 90th percentile student doesn't think of GMAT SC to be a set of just these 7 or 8 error types, but he considers this to be 200 major error types, which includes sentence structures along with these error types. So for him, it's about 200 major error types over here. A 90th percentile student uses meaning as the primary approach. For him, meaning is not an error type, it's an approach. He or she gets about 100 feedback points during learning, and he gets input, or based on that feedback points, he does revision and fixes things right then and there. And for this particular student, even though they both spend about 40 hours on SC, 60% of that time is spent on learning the method and concepts, and about 40% of the time, if at all, is spent on practicing. When you look at these two students, the way they study, do you see the difference over here? Do you see a huge difference? Okay. Yes. Let's kind of demonstrate that difference. Some of you are really saying, hey Rajat, what do you mean by these 200 error types? How many of you are worried about this thing? What is this 200 error types? We never thought about this. We only thought that GMAT SC is about these concepts. How many of you are wondering, what are these 200 error types over here? Okay. All right, let's see what these 200 error types are and and some of you are saying, what are feedback points? We're gonna talk about all of these. Good questions over here. Okay, we'll talk about feedback points during learning as well. Okay, so good. These two questions, hold them. In about 15 minutes, you'll have good answers. Let's kind of get to this. Where do you get those feedback points? I'm going to just giving you an overview. I'm going to demonstrate that in about 20 minutes after we solve this question. But when you're learning concepts, we give you about 75 personalized feedback points. When you're learning application, we give you about 23 personalized feedback points. When you're mastering application and refining to perfection, that's about another 30 to 50 feedback points over here in this case. And we build technology and we build content to ensure that you get these feedback points. And each feedback point, it's not based on a single question. Each feedback point uses at least 5 assessments, which means that there's a huge reliability factor behind each feedback point over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an SC question, and I want you to solve this question using the method that you typically use. But before I give you that question, because I don't want to time you, I want you to choose this thing called still solving. I want about 80 people to choose still solving. That way, that way later on, when you choose another answer choice, I know that you are done with it, and so when 80% of the class is done that way, I will call time. That way, I will not have timed you. You yourself as a group would have timed you. Okay, so 80 people to say still solving. 80 people. I have 56, 57, 58. I need more people to say still solving. 62. Guys, the sooner you say still solving, the sooner you see the question. It doesn't have to be one by one. All right. Here is the question. Take your time. You guys are timing you. I'm not timing you. And All right, about 80% of you are done. Let's get those answers in. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll and broadcast the results. Okay, you can see how you guys polled. Choice C is the most popular choice by far. And it's incredibly popular. Choice B is popular as well. Choice D is also very popular. Let's kind of talk about how you approach this question. Let's talk about it. Tell me, how did you approach this question? What meaning? How did you, what eliminated claimed by, compared the sentences with the same starting, okay, understanding the meaning and comparing it with the most appropriate option. Here's something that I also want you to do. Please put in bracket the choice that you chose. Okay. Please put in bracket, and I'm sorry, I should have done this early on, but I think you can still put in, you can still edit your responses. You don't delete your responses, just edit it. I want to see the reason as well as the choice. So you can see C, meaning analysis, meaning plus grammar E, meaning plus grammar C. The sentence sounded more correct C. Okay, I see error in B and D. E is not the answer. Someone's really confident. Okay, subject word error, no subject B. Okay, meaning of the first sentence in relation to the second, meaning simplicity of the sentence. Okay, all right, good. Thank you. Thank you. This is really, really helpful over here. Meaning E. Very good. Now tell me, when we talk about meaning, and I want you to think about, step back. Okay, leave this sentence for about 10 seconds. Step back. When I talk about meaning, why is meaning important in SC and why is meaning important for a leader? Think about both those things. As a manager, as a post MBA student, why is meaning important for you, or communicating meaning important for you? Answer that question, not leave this question for now. We're going to come back to this. Why do you think meaning is important in SC or on the GMAT? What attribute of an MBA does it? So a decision is as precise as possible, to understand and execute accordingly, to understand the briefs, to simplify complex problem statements, to communicate with people. Yes. For those of you who want to really say to communicate with people, that is the reason. That's the primary reason. Of course, to keep things simple is one thing. I agree with that. But as a leader, you're going to be communicating with a number of individuals. And whether it's about verbal communication where you'd be talking, or whether it's about written communication where you'd be writing briefs or giving recommendations. And when you give recommendations, they need to be as precise as possible. And where you and where you're merely communicating information and not making claims, you need to be as precise as possible as well, so you can't be blamed when something doesn't work. Okay, does that make sense? SC is about meaning because as a manager or as a leader you need to communicate, and communication needs to be precise. Okay, so when you think about this question, there are some splits over here. You have while in the beginning, and then you have the church coined over here, and you have but, and then you have that over there. So there are some splits, but I'm not sure how I can use this. Everything's underlined. It becomes complex because there are other terms which are different in each one of these as well. So frankly, when it comes to fully underlined questions, and many fully underlined questions, it's difficult to use splits. In this one, it's particularly difficult. And by the way, we don't recommend using splits anywhere. So we're going to use the meaning-based approach, and this is the original meaning-based approach over here. And why I say the original meaning-based approach, because the world didn't believe in meaning-based approach till my co-founder Payal Tandon. She created the meaning-based approach in 2010. In fact, I and Ron Purewal had a fight about the meaning-based approach in 2010 on Beat the GMAT. So let's talk about the meaning-based approach over here. Okay, so let's look at this. The church coined the date February 14 as Valentine's Day with an ulterior motive. Who has an ulterior motive over here? The church. To Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercalia is claimed by a few experts, but it is celebrated on this day. Let's just make sure to honor the anniversary of Valentine's death or burial is the more prevalent belief. Okay, so when you look at this, we're going to really do what we call as a sentence structure analysis. The church coined with an ulterior motive. So you have a subject verb is claimed by a few experts, but it is celebrated blah, 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 blah. So when you look at this, you can really see there are two claims about why February 14 was celebrated as Valentine's Day. The two claims are that the church designated it with a specific motive. The second claim is that it is to honor the anniversary of Valentine's death or burial. Claim 1 is by a few experts. Claim 2 is the more prevalent belief, the more common belief over here. Can you see each of these three aspects over here? Can you see these three aspects when you read the original sentence that the author wants to communicate? Okay. Now, any of these claims, are any of these claims made by the author? Are any of these claims made by the author? No, none of them. And that's very important. Whether it's SC, CR, or RC, is the author merely communicating information or is the author making a claim? Very, very important to identify over here. The author here is merely communicating information over here. Now, while solving this question, how many of these aspects, these are called aspects of meaning, were you unable to identify? This is a multiple response question. You can choose 1, 2, or 3. So if you're unable to identify all 3, you can choose 3, or if you were unable to identify either just 1, or if you were unable to identify and keep in mind 2 while you were solving this, you can really identify that. So again, I want to make sure that you bookmark yourself, you tell yourself that, give yourself the right feedback over here. You can see that about 70% of those who responded were unable to identify all 3. Okay, let's kind of look at this over here. We've already done this part. If you're able to get to all 3 while solving this question, you understand the meaning well enough, you should have gotten to the correct answer if you applied this meaning. If you weren't able to do this, before learning any grammar, understand how to extract meaning. Okay, because the only way you can get to that 90th percentile ability is if you do this. Okay, so what's the problem with this sentence? The problem with this sentence is this guy is claimed has no subject. Okay, this guy and this guy, both of them have no subjects. We have verbs, but the subjects are missing. Here you have a complete subject verb pair. The church coined it is celebrated as a complete subject verb pair. So clearly, choice A is wrong. Do you guys remember the choices that you chose? You guys remember the choices that you chose? Yes? Okay. So let's look at choice B. While with an ulterior motive to Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercalia, a few experts do claim. Who has an ulterior motive over here? The church or a few experts? Now, who in choice B? This is choice B. Who has the ulterior motive in choice B? A few experts. A few experts have an ulterior motive in choice B. Can everyone see that? Right? So this is still choice B. This is where you look at the choice analysis. This is the original analysis that we have for your reference so that you can really see why this thing is wrong. So why is this choice wrong? Why? Because it really says, hey, the experts had an ulterior motive, which is, it changes the meaning completely, and it fails to capture the specific motive that the church had. The fact that the church had, uh, okay. Is it clear why choice B is wrong? Yes. And for those of you who say for choice A, the church coined, isn't that correct? No. Isn't that the subject? No, it is not. And you'll see when you get to the correct answer why that is not the case. But you can see why choice B is wrong. Why? Because it just changes the meaning. Okay. The second part is okay. Second part is okay. Okay. Let's look at choice C, the most popular choice. While a few experts claim that the church coined February 14 with an ulterior motive to blah, 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 their more prevalent belief. Who is there over here? Who is there? The experts, the same group of experts over here. Is that what I as an author intended to communicate? No. Then why is it that those of you who say we are meaning based, God chose this answer choice? Why did you choose this answer choice? And why were you saying C, C, C over here? Is there any grammar here? No. I mean, this should have been very easy. Had you focused your time on the original choice, had you extracted that meaning out of that original choice. Good. If that's the reason you didn't mark C, you got it right, or you rejected it for a solid reason. Okay. Let's look at choice D. Choice D is very interesting. It's the closest incorrect choice, I would say. The church coined the date February 14 with an ulterior motive. So the church had an ulterior motive. That's okay. I like that. To Christianize the pagan celebration of Lupercilia as claimed by a few experts. Okay. Who is making this claim over here, starting from the church coined before as? Who is making this claim? No, it's not just experts. Experts are, but it is also you as the author. Let me explain this. Let's kind of look at a distinction over here. Look at this. Apple is the market leader, is claimed by Forbes magazine. What are you doing in this statement? Are you communicating information or are you making a claim? I want you to tell me. Are you communicating information or are you, as the author, making a claim? Are you communicating or making a claim? You are merely, you're not doing both. No, you're just communicating. You're just saying, hey, Forbes magazine claimed that Apple is the market leader. I don't know whether Apple is the market leader. Okay, but I'm just telling you, Forbes magazine claimed Apple is the market leader. I'm merely passing on information. Do you see the difference over here? Are you communicating? Yes. Are you making a claim here? No. Should you be blamed if it turns out that Apple is not the market leader? No. Do you see this? Do you see that you are not making a claim? Yes or no? Do you see that? You are not making a claim. Right. Now let's look at another statement over here. Apple is the market leader as claimed by Forbes magazine. What's happening here? What you're really saying is, I am claiming Apple is the market leader, and Forbes magazine is also claiming. I'm backing my claim by the fact that Forbes magazine is also claiming. You are agreeing with Forbes, yes. Huge distinction, and it cuts across SC, CR, and RC. Okay. Are you communicating information? Yes. Are you making a claim? Yes. If it turns out that Apple is not the market leader, should you get fired? Yes. Huge difference. Okay, and that's when I talk about SC is a game of sentence structures. This is the sentence structure. And by the way, how many of you have read the debriefs by our students? How many of you over here have read debriefs by our students? Okay. Have you read that as I say, hey, as I improved my SC, my CR and RC automatically started to improve? Have you observed them saying that? Yes, this is why it happens. Because when you understand this distinction, automatically you start to understand, you start to visualize arguments better, you start to connect RC passages better. It's an automatic outcome. Let's kind of take another, let me put a note over here. And again, who released the coronavirus vaccine? Just what's the name of the company? Can you help me with this over here? Who released the coronavirus vaccine? Pfizer, right? Okay. Let's take Pfizer. Okay. As claimed. Okay. And again, I'm not going to say as claimed. I'm going to just say, I'm going to use the word as. When I say Pfizer's vaccine is effective as proven by the test, am I not backing myself because of the tests? Am I not really saying I agree with the tests? Right? Okay. And over here, I'm going to use claim again because English is not always precise. Pfizer's vaccine is effective, is claimed by the test. So what I'm really saying is, hey, this piece is claimed by the test. This is the subject. This is claimed by the test. Something X is claimed by the test. Don't blame me. I'm just communicating information. It should be claimed over here. Okay. So minute difference, but important difference. One word can change. This is something you're going to see in RC as well. Okay. Or for those of you who've attended our RC session, when the author says rightly, it makes a huge difference to a statement. You've seen that. So the church coined the date February 14th as Valentine's Day, as claimed by the few experts, is where the author agrees with this. Okay. The second thing is, but its celebration on this day is too. This is also something, the second claim, both claim 1 over here and claim 2 now are by the author. Okay, which kind of makes us off. Let's look at our correct answer. That the church coined. So for you saying the church coined, isn't that the subject? No, you need a that before this to make it a proper clause. That the church coined Valentine's Day, February 14th as Valentine's Day with an ulterior motive. Ulterior motive goes back to the church over here. You can see that. That is claimed by a few experts. That's your primary thing. That your main clause. That is claimed by a few experts. But the more prevalent belief is, again, remember, But the more prevalent belief is it is celebrated on this day to honor the anniversary of Valentine's death or burial. So a lot of people really say, hey, they reject this answer choice despite the meaning over here. Um, because of these three reasons, and you see one of these things. So the subject of his claimed is that, yes. So a lot of people really say, hey, I can't start a sentence with that over here. Uh, um, and don't know why that is the case. They say, hey, it sounds awkward. So what? The sentence structure works. Hey, the meaning is precise. Okay. Some of you really say, hey, is claimed as passive. How many of you think, hey, anything that's passive is wrong on the GMAT? How many of you think anything that's passive is wrong? Why? Why is that wrong? How many of you think being is wrong on the GMAT? Only if there's a better active version. Will you ever find a better active version which communicates the exact same meaning? How many of you think being is wrong? I do for being, okay. And this is where I don't know where you guys hear this. Let me actually give you a link. Where do you hear being is always wrong on the GMAT? Put in your answers. Let me just share something. Where did you hear this? Being is wrong. And this is an article we wrote in 2013. If you click on being over here, this is something that we wrote in 2013. Okay. Don't reject being an answer choice because it's being. When it comes to GMAT SC, it is about precision. It's not so much about hey, I'm going to use the most elegant language. I'm going to use the simplest language. Those are not major error types. Precision is a major error type. Being is a construct in the English language. GMAT SC is not a test of grammar. And there's no construct in the English language which is wrong as per the GMAT. Okay. So choice E is the answer. Yes. And when you look at this over here, choice E is the correct answer. When you look at this, when you really say, why did you reject choice E? And why did you select other answer choices? The answer to this is, hey, you could not detect meaning change in other answer choices because of the sentence structure, right? Here is choice B over here. Okay. Choice C, same group of experts. Choice B actually, actually this is choice A. Choice B changes the group of experts. The ulterior motive was with the experts in choice B. Choice C actually talks about their more prevalent belief over here. Okay. Actually, this is choice A, this is choice B. What am I doing? And choice D brings the author into picture. What is it? Do you see the grammar part here, or do you see sentence structure and meaning? That was the deciding factor. What do you see over here as a deciding factor? It's sentence structure and the consequential meaning that comes out of it. Okay. If you master sentence structure, if you master the corresponding meaning, grammar is very simple. A lot of people think grammar is rules. No, grammar is an outcome of the need to communicate intended meaning. Why is A wrong? The verb doesn't exist in A. If you're an e-GMAT student, go through the master comprehension course, do the sentence structure, you're going to really see that. What percentage of students SC questions depend on meaning and not grammar? JN really says. Any e-GMAT student here? Any e-GMAT student here? Yes. What percentage of our questions do we solve using meaning? All or 10? Every question can be solved using meaning. Why? All questions are solved using meaning. Why? Because what's the purpose of a sentence? When you're writing a sentence, what's your goal? Not to express perfect grammar, but to communicate a clear meaning. Look at the definition of a sentence. What's the definition of a sentence? To communicate a meaning. So every sentence, every question depends on meaning. Why is it that people talk about grammar? Why do people talk about grammar? No, why do people talk about grammar when it comes to GMAT SC? Sorry, I should have asked the question. Because it's difficult to teach meaning. It's very easy to teach grammar. It's a set of rules. They can talk about tricks and all. Can I talk about why C is wrong? In C, both the sets of claims, this is choice C, both the sets of claims are made by those experts. That's why choice C is wrong. Now, here is something I was kind of getting some stats, and this is not kind of formally done, but some raw data over here. I was just looking at GMAT Club reviews, and for me, GMAT Club reviews is the biggest thing for 2020. Why? Because you need to have a score report to get a GMAT Club reviews, and these are just some stats that I had for 2020. These are just for 2020, not before this. And I was just looking at this and said, okay, which company got how many reviews and for what purpose? And you can do this. This is something you go to the review page, go to each company, and you can see how many reviews are on each page. And what you'd really see is, for us, 160 reviews, primarily verbal. There are two companies that delivered success on GMAT Club, us and TTP. We delivered success primarily for verbal. TTP delivered success primarily for quant. In fact, 15% is probably a bit generous for verbal over there in this case. And again, this is because of the kind of students we get. Our students have way more headroom in verbal than in quant. But again, the only other company that had a significant number of reviews, these were the only two other companies that had any significant number of reviews over there. Again, this is all public data. You can really go see, read the reviews over there. Ravi says, how many are paid? Not a single one. The question really is, if you have to get a score report from MBA.com to GMAT Club, how would you pay? Remember, it's the same score report that you send to Harvard or Stanford. Okay, which is why you can't fake it. There's only one way. In fact, if you take the online GMAT, you don't get that score report. You have to surrender your MBA.com account for someone from GMAT Club to log in and verify that score, because with online GMAT, you don't get that score report. Does that help, Ravi? Okay, with that, let's kind of really talk about this. But can you see the sentence structures that existed? Just in a single question, we saw about 5 to 6 different sentence structures. Certain answer choices had multiple sentence structures, and those sentence structures led to differences in meaning, or sometimes they led to grammar errors, right? Now, when I talked about GMAT SC is a game of 200 different error types. Those error types stem not from the fact that, hey, there's something more than subject verb or tenses or pronouns or modifiers or comparisons or parallelism or those idioms kind of are going away. But the fact is that when those error types actually get matrixed with the sentence structures, that's when you have those 200 beautiful structures out there. If you're concerned about missing live interactive classes, just read our reviews and see the kind of interaction. You won't miss them. Trust me. So By the way, look at the quality of instructors. How many of you know 4 out of GMAT Club's top 5 rated instructors are from e-GMAT? How many of you know that? 4 out of top 5 are from e-GMAT. So when it comes to instructors, well, on GMAT Club, but the ratings are on GMAT Club, by the way. So yeah, let's kind of go back to this. Guys, if you're concerned about this, schedule a session, watch the success stories. Reach out to those people on LinkedIn and they will tell you you get way better support than you'd get from a classroom program. Why? Because we have resources that give you that support. Anyone over here, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to the session. Anyone over here has written to the GMAT strategy team over at e-GMAT or posted a doubt on e-GMAT portal? An e-GMAT student written to the strategy team or posted a doubt over here? Okay. How detailed are the responses? How detailed are the responses on very detailed? Yes. We have 4 people who work 100% of their time. This is 160 hours a week, helping you respond, defining your GMAT strategy, or about 1,000 hours a month over there, because they work on weekends as well. And we have 4 full-time instructors who just respond to your doubts. Full-time instructors. Go find that on for any other prep company, whether they offer live classroom or online. You're not going to find it. So again, if you're concerned about support, you are coming from a place where the support that you've been getting is not even comparable. So coming back to this, let's talk about, and again, this is, if there are 2 or 3 things that I want you to take away from this. One is GMAT's a test of ability. The second is you have these stages of learning when it comes to different abilities. Okay. All right. To get to that 90th percentile, you need to have the right foundation. You need to learn the right methods, and you need refinement, and you need feedback at each and every stage. That's when you get to that 90th percentile ability. That feedback needs to be there. Some of you really say, hey, and I think this is a complaint that a lot of e-GMAT students have. Some of you say, why don't you give me a daily plan? Tell me which all lessons do I need to do? If you're an e-GMAT student, you tell that to us, right? Tell me which all files do I need to do. The reason why don't we provide live classes? We did. People didn't want, because they were so happy with the course. They didn't want. There's no problem providing live instruction. It's just people don't want it once they start going through the course. Yes. In September, we started a live program called LS360, where we started a batch every week. Actually, we started 2 batches a week. People would join in for the first 2, and then they would really say, hey, we're getting the same thing from the course. I would rather these people focus their time supporting me on my doubts. They didn't want live classes. If you want, I'll be happy to do that. We have the instructors, but once you start doing it, you don't want it. But coming back to it, the question that I was saying is, yeah, you've been in a live class with no methodology, and that isn't better. Yes, it doesn't help. Methodology helps. So why do we not provide you with a day-by-day plan? Why? Because, as I said, each one of you is unique, and some of you may need more reinforcement with tenses, others may need reinforcement with one kind of modifiers. If I give you a day-by-day plan, you will rush through the course. You will not take this feedback into account. Rather, we tell you need about 3.5 weeks in SC. Why? Because we know for people who started at 30th percentile, this is the amount that they have taken to properly finish our course. And after that, your learning has to be dynamic based on this feedback. That feedback's really important, otherwise you won't get the right foundation. Which application file should you revise should depend on the feedback that the platform gives you. Okay, and then how should you refine should depend on the feedback, and I'm going to show you case studies with this. The idea really is, unless and until you achieve perfection in these areas, you're not going to hit that 90th percentile over here. Okay, talked about these many feedback points that we give while you're learning concepts. Concept files tell you when you've not learned the concept properly, and we ask you to go back, revise those pieces. And if I were to ask e-GMAT students which concepts that they revised most recently, each one of them will give a different answer. Why? Because each one of you has different strengths and different weaknesses. So I can't tell everyone that, hey, revise the verb ing file twice, or just go through the course once. Why? Because I don't know you over here, and that's where the evaluation within the platform is really important. Similarly, I can't tell you which all application files to provide. That's why these personalized assessment points are really important. And I can't tell you when you're building one of those 1,000 possible kinds of custom quizzes in Scholarium, should you be instantiating questions from modifiers at 600 level or questions from comparison at 700 level. It depends on your stats on the platform. Okay. So let's take some of these case studies and you'll see some of this over here. So Jim, one of our former students, he's right now, he just got an admit from GSP Chicago and Columbia. In his first attempt, he scored a V34, which is the 71st percentile. And you look at this, he got his ESR, by the way. This is what an ESR looks like. Clearly, critical reasoning was an issue. Sentence correction was an issue. This is where all the headroom was. We worked with him. We created a 20-day study plan for him over here. And once he did that, in 20 days, he was able to go from here to here and to go from here to here. Now, for those of you who are really thinking, okay, I've not done the e-GMAT course, but I'm at 39 percentile, I can get to that 94th percentile in 20 days. No, that's not going to happen for him. He was at that 39 percentile. Why? Because there were certain gaps in his application file. He didn't incorporate that feedback. We gave him that feedback, so there was very little revision there. And then he had to do refine to perfection, which is where, if you're an e-GMAT student, we actually give you a test readiness quiz designs over there, which you do. Similarly, in sentence correction, he was very similar to Abby, and again, we gave him test readiness quizzes. He had to review about 4 application files, and that was it. So, but again, as he did that, and you can watch his debrief, or you can read his success story on GMAT Club, or if you Google Trust the Process GMAT Club, you're going to get there. You should be able to download these ESRs. Okay. And again, when you really see read his debrief and really and see what he says, helped him go from that V34 to that V42. In SC, he'll say grammar plus meaning will carry you. In CR, he said pre-thinking. Okay. Again, I'm going to share this success story. Kim, very similar case study. She was at a V37, really good score. Headroom, reading comprehension. Again, she wasn't following the reading strategies. She wasn't focusing on whether what is written from the point of view of the author versus where the author is merely communicating information. Once we helped her apply those reading strategies, you can see that improvement in not just in RC, but also in SC, where it went from that 87 percentile to that 99 percentile in SC. Okay. Again, 2 weeks, just 2 weeks over there. The foundation existed. The beauty of focusing on the stages of learning model and the fact that you have this data on our platform is that we can tell what you've done well, and we can then consequently tell you what you need to do to achieve that high GMAT score. And again, these are not isolated case studies. These are things that we've done again and again. Okay. Now, how does that feedback happen? Okay, let's take a case study of a guy who scored a 730. I'm going to talk about this feedback piece. Here is where you're learning concepts. Remember that stage of learning? Each of these, when you see subject verb a green number, you're evaluated. This 100% is an evaluation score. It's a single feedback over here, which is built on about 8 items that you go over here. This time is the time that you took to solve these questions over here. Now, this SV application file, you don't just learn concepts, you learn how to apply them right then and there as well. This SV application file, even though he scored 60%, he revised it diligently because we tracked that time. All of this tracking was built by our engineering team. We don't license a learning management system overall. And because of that, he was able to do well in the subsequent practice quiz over here. Again, so there is improvement tracking built in right then and there. By the way, if you do poorly here, you're going to fail. If you do well here, you're going to do well. Both these things are established by data over here. Okay. You can see the same thing happen in the verbs module as well. Verb sequencing, really difficult concept. He spent over an hour over there. Verbs application, as a result, he did really well. This verbs practice quiz, he didn't do as well. 64% is not a great score, but in the next quiz, he did well. Why? Because he revised this. How do we know? Because in the verb sequencing quiz, you can see how many evaluation points do we have before we give you a single feedback point, and you can see the classification as well. He bookmarked these questions, he revised those questions as well. Okay. Because he took that feedback seriously, he was able to do the corrective actions right then and there, and he improved as he took that feedback into account. And for him, he says, hey, for SC, the application of concepts was the biggest thing. He says, my concepts, just the core grammar concepts weren't bad, but he didn't know how to apply them overall. This application is what helped him get to that 730 score. Okay, once again, with that, I know you guys have a lot of questions. I'd come to the end of this webinar. If you're an e-GMAT student, this is your checklist. Take a Sigma X mock, get that personalized study plan, understand that stages of learning. If you have any doubts, write to us, attend the onboarding sessions over there. And if you are towards that last stage, attend the test readiness session. And make sure you have access to the portal where we have all the test readiness videos, guidance videos for stages of learning, and so on and so forth. If you're not an e-GMAT student, again, take a Sigma X mock and talk to one of our strategy experts to see if the e-GMAT course makes sense for you. Okay. Either way, you'd get your target milestones, get the metrics that you need to hit every week, and understand how to track your improvement over here. With that, again, here's a summary. Again, I'm going to focus on the fact that GMAT's a test of ability. You need that PSP if you want to execute efficiently. And again, remember the stages of learning. Next onboarding session, again, I am not the one that does this. Our GMAT strategy team does this. Please write to them. Or if you write to me, they automatically get a message if you're an e-GMAT student, and they will respond to you within typically one business day, but we respond to about 90% of the messages, even on Saturdays and Sundays. So write to them, and within a day you should get a response as to when that next onboarding session is. Okay, so do write to me. Okay, with that, go get that dream score. I'm gonna share that session PDF with you. You guys can download it from here. And for those of you who were asking for the link to the study plan, you guys can link to the Sigma X mock, that's over here, I'm sorry. And for that link to the study plan, you guys can get that over here. And again, guys, feedback on the session, I truly appreciate that. If you have any questions at this point in time, I'd be happy to take those questions over here. And if you want to watch all of these success stories, you can actually do that over here. PDF download won't work if you are on a tablet, but you'd get the PDF in the recording. But if you're on a desktop, PDF download should work. Okay. All right, guys. Write to me if you're an e-GMAT student, you need help, write to me, and that way your case would be assigned to one of the GMAT strategy experts. Okay. Perfect. Also, remember we have the algebra session tomorrow. Do not forget to to register for the same. Let me share that piece over here. Here is the link to our algebra session. Okay, and then we have the pre-thinking webinar next week. Does e-GMAT provide profile review? No, we don't. We don't. So we don't do that, but we work with some of the top admission consultants. And if you, uh, I do talk to a few of our successful students. You can really watch that in the interviews. There, I do give some input on profile review, and I do tell you. But again, uh, we as a company, we are focused on building a platform that's way more effective than a private tutor, and can still be sold at a much lower price. And that's kind of our focus in this space right now, guys. So when you see the updates from us, you would see that where we are personalizing your learning, we're giving you more feedback, we're improving our methodology. We don't want to go into the admission consulting space. Can you score 730 in 3 months if you have an initial score of 520? Yes, we've seen students score. It depends on, actually, we've seen them score sooner. It just depends on the number of hours you put in. So, so yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think here is one guy who did that. So, link to algebra webinar doesn't work. It should work. Hold on. Actually, hold on. You're right. For some reason, it doesn't. Why is that? Hold on, give me 1 second, guys. I will get you the links to these webinars. I'm going to add this link right below that of a Sigma X mock. So let me just do this. So if you click on algebra webinar below the Sigma X mock, you should be able to see that over there. Yes, this session is recorded, Laura. You will get the recording in about 12 hours or so. Yeah, we need to process the recording, so that's why. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. With that, I wish you good luck, and I look forward to seeing you on e-GMAT.com.